From spooky legends past, down through generations, to haunted locations that hold a ghostly past. Come one, come all, come finders and seekers. Hear the creepy side of NEPA.
Welcome to the Creepy Side of NEPA. I am Dan Kozlowski. Here we are, our first episode of 2023. Feels great to be back behind the microphone again. Joining us on this episode is Richard Miller, Executive Director of the Osterhout Free Library in Wilkes-Barre. Over the past few months, the library has been getting quite its fair share of attention, should we say, for its creepy happenings. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
We brought you onto the show because it seemed to be getting a lot of publicity lately of the library with some creepy happenings.
Yes, we have. We had a local ghost hunting crew come in, and they found some interesting stuff. And I guess there's a national network, so one of the national television shows, professionally produced television shows, picked it up and asked us if we can come. They could come and visit our library, so we were happy to have them.
I believe that was Ghost Hunters, correct?
Correct.
So what is a little bit of the back history of the property? What was it before the library, or was it always the library?
Well, we're located right in downtown Wilkes-Barre near the river, so we know there was certainly Native American settlements here over the years. I believe before it was a church, there were other buildings on the property. I think there may have been an additional wooden church, and then they built the stone building in the 1840s. It was a Presbyterian church. They were looking for bigger space by the time the library was being founded in the 1880s. So that's when the library bought it and officially opened our doors here in 1889.
Oh, so you guys were there for quite a while.
Yes. Yep.
So to your knowledge, there was 2 churches possibly on the property?
I believe there were 2, at least. Yes.
And what were some of the creepy happenings happening there throughout time?
Well, over the years, I've heard different things. Many times people hear, some voices, some creaky, eerie sounds that are typical in an old building. But one of the most sort of famous stories we have is that of one of the former librarians working here was trying to help a patron find a book. She went to the area of the shelves where it was supposed to be located. They couldn't find it, so she went ahead and kept searching. And as they moved down the aisles a few feet away, the actual book they were looking for flew off the shelf. So,
well, that's pretty interesting, right in front of them.
Crazy.
Yeah,
that was one of the most famous of the events. But it was just very odd because, like I said, it was in the wrong place, but it was the exact right book. It just flew off the shelf all of a sudden.
Oh, the exact book they were looking for, though.
Yep. It was the exact book they were looking for. We've had incidents of people that look like a staff member. They appear to be here, and someone followed them into the basement to ask them a question, and suddenly the person was no longer there. So it looked like a doppelganger of someone that actually worked here.
Was it someone that worked there in the past, or someone that was currently working there?
Someone currently working here, actually. Yep.
Yeah, usually when you hear stories like that, it's always someone who worked there in the past, but never really someone currently working in an establishment.
Yeah, yes. So we have in the basement, we have what we call our magazine room, where we store some of our older magazines or items that we don't have out on the main library. And this person was walking downstairs toward that room, and another library staff member was sort of following her. And when the second person got to the bottom of the steps, the first person was nowhere to be found. Later on, she asked her about, where did you go? How did you disappear so fast? And she said, well, I was on my lunch break at that time. So, it was a real doppelganger type story. Very, very strange, very odd.
Wow. A couple of the same type of stories, huh?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Seems to be does it seem to have most of your activity in one like central location in the library, or seem to be all throughout the building?
I think it seems to be throughout the building. The only area I have never really heard anything happening is in the children's library, which is our newest section, which was built in 1982. So, that's fairly new. So maybe that's why. But I mean, like I said, the original church dates back to the 1840s. The library took over in around 1886. It actually opened as a library in 1889. There were some additions in the early 1900s and even into the 1950s. Plus, the building had been through several floods, most significantly the Agnes flood. So, there's quite a bit of history happening here. Not to mention the fact that the Wyoming massacre that happened with Native Americans, not too far away from here, a few miles down the road, happened. There were some other incidences where the Native Americans and settlers at the time clashed. So,
I was going to say, wasn't there a few battles like right there in that area too?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, the Wyoming massacre, I think, is maybe 3 or 4 miles away, and right here along the river. The way the settlements were located and the geography of the area, this made a perfect area. And the paths for the Native Americans that were here at the time, this was their natural path to move from basically along the river up into New York, from Maryland and the Chesapeake Bay area clear up into New York. So it also became a natural focal point for conflict and the confrontations that happened.
Sure, and I'm just being that it was on that property for so long, I'm sure it saw its fair share of tragedy, and that's usually where ghost stories come from.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And being a church, we're not sure, what had transpired exactly before. We're sure that there have been funerals and things that had happened here, but we, as part of our research, we were asked to discover, had anybody actually passed away here, and I couldn't find anything at the time, but this is actually new since the National Ghost Hunters appearance. But we actually found out that someone did pass away here who was using the library at the time and had some sort of medical emergency, and unfortunately, passed away while using the library. And this was probably 40 or 50 years ago. But so there is actually an instance of people that passed away.
Right, at least one that you know of.
Right. At least one. And like you said, with the activity and the history and some of the clashes, it wouldn't be a surprise if there had been others. There was some talk of that there's a possibility that there was a Native American burial ground here very close to our property, if not right on the property. So that's very possible.
Right. So it's not that it just happened in the building. It could have happened on the property, like you said, with the clashes or anything like that.
Right. And, the library building itself, which used to be the church, next door was an empty ground that became the new Presbyterian church. So they basically just moved next door from the libraries. And there is still a parcel of land between ourselves and the Westmoreland Club, which is still an empty piece of ground. So it's hard to tell what actually happened. Records weren't always the best, and
of course,
obviously, with the settlers and the Native Americans clashing, people didn't stop to take copious notes. So there's quite a bit of unknown history, but still, it certainly lends itself well to paranormal, if you believe in that sort of thing, for sure.
And I wasn't sure if it was your building or one of the buildings in your general neighborhood. I went on the ghost tour in Wilkes-Barre a couple of years ago, and I remember them mentioning something about finding tombstones in the basement.
I don't think it was this building, but like I said,
it might have been in that general area.
I'm sure it was. I believe I've heard things about burials taking place here, and again with the clashes that happened. It was not uncommon for the European settlers to build right on top of Native American burial grounds if, they found that land was the most attractive.
Right.
So,
I mean, we had a few years ago a historian in Wilkes-Barre talk about how Wilkes-Barre City Hall is built on an old graveyard.
Yes, that's absolutely true. I've heard that from several different sources. So, like I said, there's quite a bit of history in this area, and especially the closer you get to the river, because there weren't natural roadways and certainly the modern machinery to build roadways. So they used the river for navigation, and along the river was usually the flattest lands and the easiest trails. So The closer you are to the Susquehanna River in our region, the more likely it is that you're passing on ancient pathways and burial grounds and ancient dwellings and sites of conflict.
Now, since you guys had a couple ghost investigating groups come in, and even the National Ghost Hunters, have they been able to find anything in your property?
Yes, we actually found several things. I'll start with the local group. They actually spent quite a bit of time in our basement. They found voices and recordings that they made, and it actually, in some cases, it sounded as though a child or some children were speaking German, and we know there had been German settlers in the areas, so that was pretty interesting and unique. The local group that did their investigation, they've been here several times, and actually they have another visit planned to the Osterhout coming up not too far from now, and sometime in March. They discovered quite a bit of paranormal activity, and they did find different things we weren't expecting, but I'm glad they were able to do it and visit us. And like I said, that's how we came to the attention of this national prominent group of ghost hunters. So it was quite the experience. So in addition to what they found, so when the national group came, I was more involved with their activities, and what they actually came up with were some pretty interesting recordings. They heard voices on their equipment, and it sounded like it wasn't a menacing voice, but it was kind of exasperating. Like a librarian found some people here, late at night or after, as the library was closing. And, the voice kind of said, it's time to get out. It's time to leave, go home, things like that.
Like they're getting thrown out, basically.
Yes, exactly. not like they were being menaced or anything was happening, but just, we're tired. It's time for you to get out of here. So.
Yep. Like it's time to close, or you don't belong here now. You can't stay here, exactly. But you can't go. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Yes, exactly. Like the old song says.
Yep.
But yeah, so we had that. They also found some interesting things in the basement. Again, some paranormal activity. They were walking along the floors upstairs in our what we call our stack wing. It's made of structural glass, so it's part of the floor. Back when the library was built and the wing was built, there wasn't electricity, or not very good reliable electricity, so they did things like have glass floors so the light could filter in through the windows and provide better light. That kind of adds to the eeriness of the place. But as they were walking along, they also found that books were kind of sliding and moving, and as they walked away, something would pop out behind them that wasn't unexpected. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, it sounds like there's definitely quite a bit of activity there at your library.
Yes, absolutely.
And when you think of haunted locations, a library isn't something that pops right into your head.
Right. I don't think it normally would be, but like I said, the building having such a long and storied history, it's just
right, of course.
Yeah, it just sort of lends itself well to that.
Now, I believe you were talking about your Ghost Paranormal group coming back again in the future?
Yes.
You planned? Okay.
Yes. I believe they'll be here sometime in March.
You'll have to keep us informed if they find anything else.
Absolutely. I will send you the information. I've never been a huge believer, but, tried to keep an open mind. We had a maintenance person that worked here probably close to 40 years, and he actually unfortunately passed away probably about a year ago in August. And his office was downstairs, and just outside of my office door is a set of stairs that goes to the basement, and it would have been to the area where he worked, but it's not our main access to the basement anymore. So it's, the door is still there, but we have a gate across, and we don't really use that. No one really uses that stairway. I've been here 10 years, and I've never seen anything out of place or noticed anyone on it or heard anyone going up and down those steps. But for the 3 days after he passed away, the gate was open. The first day, there were a little bit scraps of paper, and it looked like the door at the bottom of the steps was slightly ajar, maybe half an inch. Well, I didn't really think anything of it. I just thought, well, someone was fooling around. So I just pulled the gate closed, and I just imagined our maintenance staff would get the paper later as they came through to clean. But the next day, the gate was open even further. The paper was on the steps again, and the door at the bottom of the steps was open just a little bit more. And then it happened the third day, and I got to thinking, well, maybe he's trying to get back to his office to do some more work at the library.
Yeah, geez, if he was there for 40 years, he probably really loved his job. He just didn't want to leave yet.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that was a bit of a unusual experience. That was probably my most memorable experience here. I know other staff members have seen things like, in our ladies' restroom for the staff, it's a typical restroom. It has stalls and sinks. And one of our staff members said, coming out of the stall one day, and all of a sudden the water in the sink was running. And it was weird because she obviously, she didn't hear the door open, so no one else came in and turned it on, and it hadn't been on when she came in. And as she came out and looked at the sink, the water turned off just as quick as it started. So that was strange. We've actually had a few events in that restroom, which are, you don't really think of restrooms are always the most pleasant things to talk about. But again, one of our maintenance staff working on the plumbing in that restroom, and he had been alone in the building. Everything was out of use, but he walked out to get a tool or something, and he walked back in, and one of the fixtures looked like somebody had been using it to, what you use a restroom for. So
yeah.
That was really weird and unusual. And he said he didn't stick around too much longer after that and called the plumber to finish fixing the fixture. But just little odd things like that. One of the things to note in all of the visits and the paranormal investigations we've had, no one has ever found anything menacing. Like, I understand sometimes that happens. It seems like a lot of our, the paranormal events that they've been able to record and uncover are people being, or ghosts or whatever spirits that you would like to call them. They seem to be non-threatening or helpful.
Right.
Basically scolding someone that they're here too long is about it.
Yeah, I know. I've been doing this podcast for going on 4 years now, and a majority of the stories seem like good, friendly ghosts, I would say. There are a couple ones that were menacing out there, but that was very small percentage of the stories that I heard anyway.
Yep, exactly that. That's something that you kind of considered and worried. I don't want people to be frightened to use the library, but I guess it makes sense if there are ghosts here that are tied to the library and the history of the library. And we've been here, for the majority of the time that the building has been here, 130 years or so. It seems like whatever events or spirits are here are actually helpful in trying to help people find the right book, or tell them to leave. Or we also had, with the national investigation, it sounded like someone saying, "What do you want?" So
they're there to help you. They're not there to harm you at all.
Right. Exactly. That's what we found so far. So pleased to hear that.
It definitely sounds like a very interesting place, and you definitely have a lot of paranormal activity, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. It does seem, and again, like I said, I wasn't sure what to think, but people that have invested in the time and technology and learning to study these sort of things, that they all pretty consistently find something that, even if you're a skeptic, it has to make you wonder, make you question, well, could it be? And it is pretty consistent in the type of events and things that you hear about. For example, I had some relatives here helping with a fundraising event, and we were closing down and putting things away for the night.
Mm-hmm.
And my aunt heard noises and voices, and it was like a little crowd of people, and it just scared the bejesus out of her, and she wanted to get out of here, but none of the rest of us heard it. But to this day, she insists she heard something. So,
And like when you just mentioned the crowd of people, it makes me wonder, maybe they're meeting up for church or something that we don't know about.
It very well could be. It very well could be. It could go back to the history of the church. Maybe they're here for a wedding or a funeral or just Sunday service.
Do you notice any of the paranormal activity happening on something like more on Sundays? Now that you mention that, it made me wonder.
Actually, that is a good idea. I didn't really think of that, but since we are not traditionally here on Sundays,
you never know then.
Really noticed that. I mean, I've stopped in or I've come to do some work on Sundays, but I haven't really noticed anything. But usually that would be later in the afternoon anyway, when churches traditionally are not in session. But we are here Saturdays, and I know it was a Saturday when my aunt heard those noises. So that's more of a wedding day traditionally.
Could be a connection there.
Who knows? Maybe they're here for a good occasion, a wedding, or like I said, a sad occasion like a funeral. Or that's actually a very good question. We'll
it just popped into my mind.
Sunday.
Yeah, when you mentioned that, when Sunday services, it sort of connected the dots there.
Part of our building is the old Sunday school room. So, and that's that. We were in a little hallway between the main library, which is the old church itself, where the services would take place, and the Sunday school room. And she heard the voices coming from behind her, where the Sunday school room would have been. So, it's very possible there was some sort of, paranormal reception or activity going on.
Well, I don't want to take too much of your time on you, Richard. I'd like to thank you for joining our show, and seems like you had some great stories to share with us.
Oh, I appreciate it. If I think of any more, I'll certainly let you know, but I think those are some of the highlights.
Yeah, sounds like it. Thank you very much. And like I said, feel free to contact us if you find anything else.
I will do that. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Creepy Side of NEPA. Before I leave you this evening, just a few quick announcements. The Osterhout Free Library in downtown Wilkes-Barre will be holding a paranormal event hosted by the Wyoming Valley Ghost Tours featuring the paranormal couple. The event will be held on Friday, March 3rd from 6 to 11. For more information or tickets, they are available through Wyoming Valley Ghost Tours. You can find them on Facebook. One more thing to mention with the Osterhout Free Library, they do host a horror club at the library. For more information on that, you could find it on the library's website, oysterhut.info, or once again, look them up on Facebook. For all you late owls out there, you can now hear the Creepy Side of NEPA on WNEP Plus every night at midnight. One last announcement before I close this evening's episode. Keep your eyes on WNEP's Creepy Side of NEPA Facebook page for a big announcement coming up. We are planning an event coming up in the near future. Can't say too much about it, but as soon as we hammer out the details, we will be posting some information on social media. Until next time, enjoy the Creepy Side of NEPA.
This has been the Creepy Side of NEPA. If you have a spooky story that took place in northeastern or central Pennsylvania, send it to ghost@WNEP.com for your chance to share it on an upcoming episode. We're dying to hear from you.